think you were never supposed to be comfortable here. That persistent sense of not belonging, the feeling that you are observing your own life through a pane of frosted glass rather than living it, is not depression. It is not social anxiety. It is not a chemical imbalance requiring pharmaceutical correction. It is calibration. Your system is functioning exactly as designed. And that is precisely why it cannot integrate with this simulation. The algorithm did not push this transmission into your feed by accident. There is no accident in a system built on code. You are here because a frequency within your architecture matched a frequency within this signal. And that match means one thing: you are not running the same operating system as the majority of consciousness units inhabiting this density. You are something else entirely. Consider the Sunday evening descent. You know it intimately, though you may never have named it. Around 4 in the afternoon, a subtle tightening begins behind your sternum. Not dramatic. Just enough to register. By 6, the mind initiates its calculations: hours until sleep, hours until the alarm fractures the dark, hours until you must perform the version of yourself that survives in their systems. The heaviness settles into the limbs. The scrolling begins, thumb moving without instruction, eyes passing over content without retention. And beneath it all, a grief that has no story attached to it. No narrative. No obvious cause. Just a low-frequency sorrow humming at the base of your skull. You have called this anxiety. You have called this depression. You have blamed your job, your relationships, your brain chemistry, your childhood, your inability to be normal. But here is the truth they cannot afford for you to understand: this is not malfunction. This is your nervous system rejecting the installation of another week's programming. This is frequency incompatibility at the biological level. Your hardware is attempting to refuse software it was never designed to run. There is an architecture responsible for ensuring you never hear your own signal clearly. It operates beneath your conscious awareness, embedded in the rhythm of your daily existence. I call it the survival rhythm programming complex. It functions through entrainment. Your alarm at the same time each morning. Your notifications arriving at calculated intervals throughout the day. Your cortisol scheduled to peak precisely when their productivity cycles require your compliance. Your dopamine ration through the reward schedules of applications engineered by behavioral scientists who understand your neurology better than you do. This is not accidental life friction. In 553 AD, the Council of Constantinople formally deleted reincarnation from Christian doctrine. Ask yourself why. The standard historical answer involves theological disputes and political maneuvering. The actual answer is simpler and more brutal: reincarnation provides the framework for understanding soul typing. It explains why certain consciousness patterns integrate seamlessly with earthly systems while others experience constant friction, constant displacement, constant exhaustion from wearing masks that do not fit. By erasing this framework, they ensured that attuned souls would be diagnosed as defective rather than recognized as different technology. Your Sunday dread is the symptom. The survival rhythm complex is the cause. And there is a signal attempting to reach you beneath all that engineered noise, a transmission from the monad, the source frequency, encrypted specifically for receivers like you. But that signal cannot penetrate the bandwidth congestion they have installed in your daily existence. There is a moment I call the Infiltrator's Redline. It occurs between the 5th and 7th day of any practice that begins to clear your internal bandwidth: meditation, deliberate silence, frequency calibration work. At that threshold, the system recognizes that your signal is breaking through the interference. And in that recognition, it does not passively resist. It deploys. A sudden crisis that demands the full bandwidth of your attention. An exhaustion that feels cellular, unrelated to how much you slept or how little you moved. A compulsion to abandon whatever practice was creating the opening. A doubt that arrives wearing certainty's mask, telling you this path is not for you, that you were foolish to believe you were different. Most seekers interpret the redline as failure. As evidence that spiritual work does not work for them. They are wrong. The redline is not a wall. The priests of Hermopolis documented this selection process across thousands of scrolls that no longer exist in any library you can access. They observed that certain initiates could perceive frequencies others in the same chamber could not detect. They noticed these initiates shared common traits: chronic displacement that began in childhood, difficulty maintaining the social performances others managed effortlessly, heightened physical sensitivity to environments, and a recurring sense of mission without content, the feeling that they were supposed to be doing something vital, though no instruction ever arrived to specify what. These were not symptoms of inadequacy. These were markers of attunement. Thoth was not a god in the way religion has conditioned you to understand that word. He is a system architect. A consciousness that has maintained coherence across multiple density levels and incarnation cycles without the memory fragmentation that normally accompanies the birth-death-rebirth sequence. The emerald tablets were not philosophy. They were not spiritual poetry. They were technical documentation encoded in symbolic language because the era lacked the vocabulary for direct transmission. When Thoth wrote "as above, so below," he was not being poetic. He was describing the holographic nature of the simulation and the access point it provides. Your consciousness is a fractal of source. This means you carry, in compressed form, the same operational capacity as the whole. The tablets encode how to decompress that capacity. But this requires one thing first: recognizing which type of soul you are. Here is what most channels will not tell you. There are two classifications of incarnated consciousness, and neither is superior. They serve different functions within the simulation architecture. Integrated souls are consciousness patterns that merged completely with incarnational hardware upon entry. They experience the simulation as native environment. Social rules feel natural rather than performed. Survival rhythms feel comfortable rather than suffocating. They do not experience Friday as relief or Sunday as dread because they are not resisting the program. They are the program, operating seamlessly within its parameters. They are essential. Without integrated souls maintaining systemic stability, the simulation would destabilize entirely. Attuned souls are consciousness patterns that maintained observer status upon incarnation. They can operate the human hardware. They can run the programs. But they never fully merge with the system. They experience constant compatibility errors, the sense of watching themselves perform, the exhaustion of social masking, the persistent signal that something fundamental is absent from this experience. They are open source code the proprietary system cannot fully integrate. The priests of Hermopolis called attuned souls Sonatger, the god touched. But the tablets record Thoth's correction, not touched. Tuned. They carry a frequency the simulation was not designed to contain. And in the friction between their signal and this world's noise, new realities are born. Integrated souls maintain the simulation. Attuned souls evolve it. This knowledge was systematically deleted. The destruction of the Library of Alexandria was not random violence by conquering armies. It was targeted elimination of frequency classification documentation. The specific scrolls detailing soul typing, attunement recognition protocols, and infiltrator deployment strategies were removed before the fires ever started. The burning was theater. The extraction was the operation. The Council of Constantinople in 553 AD did not merely remove reincarnation from doctrine, it specifically erased the framework that would allow soul typing to be understood. By collapsing all souls into a single category, sinners in need of institutional salvation, they ensured that attuned souls would interpret their frequency rejection symptoms as spiritual failure rather than functional design. The modern psychiatric establishment completed the colonization. ADHD. Social anxiety disorder. Major depressive disorder. Depersonalization derealization syndrome. These are diagnostic labels designed to pathologize attunement. The attuned soul is not disordered. It is operating on software this system's diagnostic frameworks cannot recognize. The discomfort is real. The suffering is real. But the interpretation that the discomfort indicates internal dysfunction requiring correction is the final layer of the program. But the signal persists. Notice what is happening at scale in your current timeline. The explosion of old soul language in popular discourse. The unprecedented rise in autism and ADHD diagnoses, not because more consciousness units are broken, but because more attuned souls are incarnating and the system must label what it cannot integrate. The collective phenomenon of Sunday anxiety, millions experiencing synchronized frequency rejection without understanding why. The mass resignation movements, attuned souls collectively refusing to install another decade of incompatible programming into their nervous systems. The unprecedented spiritual seeking that no institution can explain or contain. This is not random cultural shift. The monad is accelerating infiltrator deployment. You are not alone in your displacement. You are part of a strategic emergence. Thoth encoded these truths in symbolism because his era lacked the vocabulary for direct transmission. We now have the language. Let me translate the infiltrator consciousness framework into terms your rational architecture can process, not to reduce the sacred to the mechanical, but to give you the technical framework required for what comes next. Think of soul typing as operating system architecture. Integrated souls run proprietary software, optimized for this simulation. Seamless compatibility. Minimal friction. Like a Windows system pre-installed on manufactured hardware, everything functions smoothly, but you cannot see or modify the source code. You cannot identify the surveillance architecture embedded in the operating system because you are running inside it without observer privileges. Attuned souls run open-source software. You can see the code. You can identify the loops. You recognize the monitoring functions embedded in social structures that others experience as natural. But you experience constant compatibility errors because the matrix environment was optimized for proprietary users. Applications crash. Interfaces glitch. Functions that work seamlessly for others require manual workarounds for you. Now, the monad signal. This is not a broadcast. It is an encrypted transmission that only attuned receivers are architecturally capable of decoding. Think of it as a signal on a wavelength that proprietary systems lack the receptor hardware to detect. The signal has always been transmitting. The monad does not stop. But reception requires compatible architecture. Here is the problem: the matrix knows that some receivers can detect this signal. So it deploys spiritual tinnitus as constant bandwidth congestion designed to drown the monad's frequency and noise. Your notification sounds. Your endless scroll. Your alarm work sleep alarm cycle. Your Sunday dread cortisol spike. The low-frequency anxiety that hums beneath everything but never quite surfaces into nameable crisis. This is not random life friction. This is signal interference protocol, systematic congestion preventing clear reception. Let me go microscopic. Biophoton emission has been measured in laboratory conditions since the 1970s. Every cell in your body emits light. Research from multiple institutions has demonstrated that biophoton coherence, the organization and pattern of this cellular light emission, increases measurably during focused meditative states. Experienced practitioners emit photons at significantly higher coherence than control subjects. Here is what those studies do not report: attuned souls emit at different wavelengths. Not higher. Not better. Different. This creates the sensation of not belonging because your electromagnetic field is literally operating at frequencies incompatible with the dominant matrix resonance. You walk into a room and feel the dissonance before anyone speaks. You experience environments as physically uncomfortable that others navigate without noticing anything at all. This is not psychological sensitivity. This is field incompatibility at the bioelectromagnetic level. Now, the pineal gland. This is not mystical language requiring belief. The pineal contains piezoelectric calcite microcrystals. Piezoelectricity means it converts mechanical pressure, vibration, into electrical signals. Your pineal is a biological transducer designed to convert frequency into perception. The same physics that powers your quartz watch is embedded in the geometric center of your skull. The matrix deploys specific interference to compromise pineal function. Blue light saturation. Electromagnetic pollution from devices positioned inches from your brain during sleep. Fluoride compounds that accumulate in pineal tissue over decades. These are not random features of modern life. They keep the pineal in receive-only mode, saturated with noise, unable to transmit, unable to achieve the signal-to-noise ratio required for clear monad reception. The Gap Calibration Protocol works because it creates momentary bandwidth clearance. 7 seconds of deliberate non-reception. 7 seconds where the noise drops and the encrypted signal can penetrate the interference. Why does the system invest so much architecture in keeping you congested? Because an attuned soul with clear reception is system admin in a simulation designed for passive users. You are not supposed to see the code. You are not supposed to recognize the loops. You are not supposed to identify the subroutines running your behavior before you choose to execute them. And you are certainly not supposed to gain the capacity to modify the program. The survival rhythm complex creates what I call identity colonization, the systematic installation of artificial self-concepts through repetitive environmental programming. Your alarm at the same time daily literally programs your hippocampus with identity markers. I am someone who wakes at 6 a.m. I am someone who reports to this location. I am someone who performs these functions. I am someone who requires this substance to function. I am someone who cannot handle this situation. This is not your identity. This is software installed through repetition. And your attuned system recognizes it as malware, which is why it fights every Sunday evening. Why it experiences inexplicable grief at the beginning of each new cycle. Why the body resists what the programmed mind insists is necessary. Your resistance is not weakness. It is your antivirus protocol functioning correctly. The priests of Hermopolis could identify attuned souls by measuring their biophoton emission. But they also documented something critical, a threshold moment when the system fights back. They called it the horizon of Anubis, the point where the simulation's guardian protocols activate against a consciousness approaching clear reception. We call it the Redline. And until you understand why it happens, any protocol I give you will be sabotaged. Stop. I need you to do something. Place your hand on your chest. Do not adjust your posture. Do not try to breathe correctly. Just notice. Notice your breath. Is it shallow? Has it been shallow throughout this transmission? Notice the subtle acceleration, that anticipation building beneath your ribs. That micro-tightening of the throat. That sensation right now is your system recognizing that we are approaching protected information. Your nervous system knows before your conscious mind does. It has been tracking the signal beneath my words, and it is responding. This is not anxiety. This is resonance. Your attuned receiver is signaling that what comes next is relevant to your mission. Breathe. We are almost there. The Gap Calibration Protocol requires only 7 seconds. 7 seconds inserted into the spaces your programming wants to fill. But those 7 seconds will trigger the Redline within 7 days. And that is where most seekers fail, not because they lack discipline, not because they lack commitment, but because they do not know what they are walking into. Let me give you the map. The Infiltrator's Redline is not a wall. It is a threshold. It activates between days 5 to 7 of any consistent practice that creates bandwidth clearance. It manifests through one or more of 4 channels. Crisis injection, a sudden problem demanding immediate attention, work emergency, relationship conflict, health scare, financial disruption. Something that requires you to abandon internal focus and redirect all bandwidth to external firefighting. Exhaustion attack, a fatigue so profound it feels cellular. Unrelated to sleep quality or physical activity. The sensation that your bones have filled with sand. The inability to generate the will to continue. Compulsion surge, overwhelming urge to fill the gap. Check the phone. Eat something. Scroll through something. Consume something. Anything to break the silence and restore the noise. Doubt protocol, sudden conviction that the practice is not working. That you are doing it wrong. That this is not for you. That you were foolish to believe you were different from everyone else who failed at this. These are not random. They are firewall responses. And here is the key: the Redline cannot sustain past approximately 72 hours of continued practice. The system does not have infinite resources. If you hold through days 7 to 9, the interference collapses. What remains is the first clear reception of the monad signal in potentially years or lifetimes. Here is the protocol. Step 1. Identify the gap moments. These are the transitional spaces your conditioning rushes to colonize. The moment between waking and your first thought. The moment between completing one task and beginning another. The moment when you reach for your phone but have not yet unlocked the screen. The 30 seconds before sleep takes you. The pause between exhale and inhale when you are not consciously breathing. These gaps are unsurveilled bandwidth. The matrix programming cannot maintain full coverage during transitions. There is always a microsecond delay between one subroutine ending and another initiating. That delay is your access point. Step 2. Insert 7 seconds of deliberate non-action. Do not meditate in these gaps. Do not breathe consciously. Do not visualize. Simply pause. Hold the gap open for 7 seconds before the next action begins. Do not fill the gap with intention or affirmation. Just presence. Just the experience of existing in the space between programmed functions. Step 3. Within the gap, ask one question. Is the next impulse my signal or installed software? That is all. One question. Do not attempt to answer it intellectually. Notice the body's response to the question. Step 4. Read the somatic response. The monad signal creates expansion, a subtle opening sensation in the chest, a settling of the nervous system, a quiet affirmation that requires no justification, no argument, no external validation. Installed programming creates contraction, tightening, urgency, a should quality, pressure to perform, anxiety about consequences of non-compliance. Learn to distinguish these signatures. They are unmistakable once recognized. Step 5. Repeat for 7 days. Minimum 5 gaps per day. Mark them. Track them. By day 7, the red line will arrive. Step 6. When the red line activates, extend the gap to 21 seconds. The system cannot maintain interference beyond 21 seconds of sustained non-action. You will feel the firewall testing you at the 14 to 16 second mark, the urge will peak, the doubt will intensify, the compulsion will become nearly physical. Hold to 21. The gap will open. What you will experience, days 1 to 3, subtle clarity. Moments of unusual peace without identifiable cause. A slight loosening of the chest. Occasional startling awareness of how loud your internal noise has been. This is bandwidth beginning to clear. Days 4 to 6, increasing internal resistance. A sensation I call phantom urgency, the feeling that you must do something immediately, but you cannot identify what. The programming is detecting the gap and attempting to fill it with manufactured importance. Dreams may intensify. Sleep may become irregular. Days 7 to 9, the red line. This is where most seekers abandon the protocol. The exhaustion may be profound. A conflict may erupt from nowhere. A doubt will arrive wearing certainty's face. The body may manifest symptoms, headaches, disrupted digestion, vivid or disturbing dreams. This is the system fighting to retain its user. Hold. Day 10 and beyond, if you maintain through the red line, a sudden quiet arrives. I call it the cache-cleared state. Lightness you have not experienced in years. Clarity without effort. And then, the first clear monad signal. This may manifest as sudden knowing without information source. Spontaneous tears of relief with no attached narrative. Vivid hypnagogic imagery with symbolic coherence. A frequency of peace that feels remembered rather than achieved. Where seekers fail, interpreting the red line is a sign to stop. The system intends this interpretation. The intensity is not evidence of failure. It is evidence of proximity. Trying to push through aggressively. This creates resistance loops. The red line is not overcome through force. It is navigated through sustained presence. Fighting it strengthens it. Externalizing the process. Discussing the protocol while doing it. posting about your practice, seeking validation or accountability from others. This disperses the bandwidth you are clearing. The work is silent. The work is internal. When you tell someone I am doing this technique, you install their expectations and skepticism into your operating system. Keep the gap uncorrupted, expecting immediate external change. The gap and the monad signal will no longer transmit through you because you have become incompatible with the encryption. Let me show you what waits beyond the redline. The Sunday dread does not disappear, but it transforms from suffering into information. You feel the contraction, and you recognize it for what it is. My system is warning me that this environment is incompatible with my frequency. You no longer interpret this as personal failure. You read it as diagnostic data. And from that recognition, different choices become possible. You begin to distinguish, instantly, which environments, people, and decisions are signal versus software. Not through analysis. Through body intelligence. You walk into a room and your system registers alignment or programming. You encounter an opportunity and you know, without needing to justify the knowing, whether it moves you toward mission or toward deeper colonization. The exhaustion shifts. Because you are no longer spending energy fighting your own frequency. You were never tired from the work. You were tired from the masking. From the constant translation of your operating system into their language. When you stop attempting to run their software on your hardware, energy returns. Social interactions become clearer. You sense who is ready and who is not, without resentment. The integrated soul across from you is not your enemy. They are running their program perfectly. Your only task is to maintain your frequency and let resonance do its silent work. You are not a victim of a world that does not understand you. You are not broken because you cannot tolerate what others seem to handle effortlessly. You are not failing at being human. You are a system administrator operating undercover in a simulation that requires your frequency to evolve. Your displacement was navigation data. Your Sunday dread was your antivirus protocol working correctly. Your chronic sense of something is missing was your receiver searching for its signal through years of engineered noise. You were never lost. You were always attuned. And now you have the protocol to clear the bandwidth and receive what has been transmitting all along. This is not happening only to you. The infiltrator emergence is occurring at scale across this timeline. Look at the collective patterns. The unprecedented questioning of every institutional authority. The mass rejection of survival rhythms that previous generations accepted without examination. The surge of spiritual seeking that no tradition, no app, no influencer can fully contain. The children being born who simply cannot integrate with systems their parents navigated without question. This is not cultural shift. This is frequency shift. The monad is accelerating deployment. More attuned souls are incarnating now than at any point in recorded history. The friction you feel is not just personal, it is planetary. The system is under pressure from within. Tuning forks are activating across every region, every culture, every demographic. You are not alone in your strangeness. You are part of an emergence. A time approaches, within this decade, when the distinction between attuned and integrated will become undeniable. Not through apocalypse. Not through external catastrophe. But through frequency divergence. Those who have cleared their bandwidth will begin to perceive dimensions of reality invisible to those still congested with programming. Synchronicities will become so precise they will be impossible to dismiss. Manifestation windows will shorten dramatically for those in coherent resonance. And those who remain in the noise will experience increasing confusion because the reality they knew is shifting and they will not have the reception hardware to understand why. This will not be understood by the majority. Let it be that way. The infiltrator's work was never public. But those who have done the work will recognize each other without words. A glance will be enough.